Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, Alvin and I will be presenting you with our bipartisan predictions for the New Jersey gubernatorial primaries.
Yeah, so basically, when this video is released, it's going to be the day after. It's going to be on June 10th, and New Jersey's governor primaries will be happening. This is going to be very important because really we're narrowing down from pretty much nine candidates down to two to see who will be the governor. And things are interesting because last time around in 2021, Jack Chiarelli, the Republican, came really close to dethroning Phil Murphy as the governor and only came within 3 points of doing so. And of course, we know that from 2020 to 2024, New Jersey shifted 10 points to the right, making it basically a swing state at this point, with major shifts, especially in high minority areas. And so we're going to be looking at the primaries, but also at the end, we're going to give you our general election prediction. But yeah, let's go first with the Democrat primary, which is a little more competitive, although I guess not too much more competitive at this point. But yeah, let's go through the candidates.
Okay, so I guess we'll just start as they're presented in on the Wikipedia page here. First up, we have Ros Baraka, the mayor of Newark. So he's running in the progressive lane of this primary. He's definitely the most progressive candidate. Is pitching like ideas like completely reforming the healthcare system in New Jersey. And it has some like congressional endorsements from the more progressive members of uh, of the New Jersey Congressional Caucus. Another notable thing about him is he was recently arrested in Newark in front of an ICE detention facility while he was attempting to gain entry with other members of Congress to kind of like investigate the place. And even though he left the premises, they came out and arrested him. So yeah, he's had like direct confrontations with the Trump administration, which makes him a very interesting candidate.
Yeah, also, I guess another thing is that he's black, so that is probably going to pull a lot of urban black voters for him. And Newark, for those of you who are unfamiliar with New Jersey's, cities, that is the biggest city in New Jersey. So it does have a big base, although it is very poor and not a great place to live. Second, we have Stephen Fulop, mayor of Jersey City, and he is also in the progressive lane, although I guess slightly to the right of Ros Baraka. And he has been going around the state as well, gathering endorsements across the state. He's also gotten endorsements from the College Democrats, so he had does have a lot of youth support. I know that his platform is the most detailed and comprehensive of all the Democrats, and that's going to help him with people who are very highly engaged as well. I know that honestly, the more exposure people have had to Philip, the more people have been flipping to him from the other candidates in the race, so that's good for him. However, his momentum has largely stalled, as we'll get into the polling later. And although he
Yeah.
did seemingly have a good shot at one point, he's sort of fallen out of favor, I suppose.
A couple other things to note about Philip. While Barack is the mayor of the largest city in the state, he's the mayor of the second largest city, Jersey City. Um, and another important thing is he's running a very interesting campaign in the fact that he's kind of supporting opposition candidates in the New Jersey General Assembly, so the state legislative candidates, and he's running on the same slogan with a lot of these candidates. So he's doing that all across the state. I think in about like 50% of the General Assembly primaries. So he's basically trying to create little coalitions with other candidates across the state to boost his margins, which I think is a very unique and strategy to getting votes that you don't really see a lot of other candidates doing. Anyway, um, next, Josh Gottheimer, a congressman from the Bergen County, so like in northern New Jersey. Bergen County is, I believe, the largest county in the state by population. In terms of Dem registered voters, I think it's ranked second in terms of like the amount of Dem registered voters, second or third. So that's a big base of Democratic votes for Gottheimer to pull from because Bergen County is his home county. He also represents that whole like northern part of the state. Basically, the whole northern border of New Jersey is more or less represented by him right now. So he's lots of connections up there and lots of endorsements from those regions. Other things to note about him, he's one of the more moderate-ish members of the House of Representatives. Um, so he's running in a more moderate lane as a result. And also we see a lot of his messaging focused around cutting taxes in New Jersey.
Yeah, you pretty much covered all of them. Something important to note is his endorsements. A lot of these very establishment, slimy Hudson County Democrats have now been shifting their endorsements to Cheryl, which shows that he
Yeah.
has lost momentum as well among these sort of moderate, slimy Hudson County Democrats. And yeah, I guess we move to Mikey Sherrill here, who is definitely the front runner.
Hmm.
And she looks like she has about a 90 to 95% shot of winning this primary here and will likely also take the general election, although that, of course, that's much further away. She has gotten a lot of U.S. reps to support her, as well as just generally a lot of people around the state. I mean, she started off as a front runner. She got a ton of Democrat committee endorsements around the state. And in general, she has been seen as this sort of generic Democrat, I should say,
Yeah.
that who is able to unite the party, not too moderate like a Josh Gottheimer and not too progressive like a Steve Fulop. She's just in that center of a center left, and she's able to unite the party. Looks to be probably the scariest opponent, honestly, for
Yeah.
Republicans in general. And yeah, looks like she's going to be cruising on Tuesday.
Yeah, because like she's from like the North Jersey suburbs, similar to Gottheimer. She was in a historically swingy district that's kind of trended much bluer, but she's like proved her ability to win swing races similarly to Gottheimer. But yeah, the thing is, like, she has a big leg up in the primary because she was leading in the polling since the beginning. But after, like, going forward from there, like, she's just been doing better and better because she kind of saved all her ad spending money till the end of the race. So you see, like, Mikey Sherrill ads everywhere now because she's just dumping money in. And additionally, she got an endorsement from the North Jersey machine based in Hudson County. That's Steve Phillips County, one of her opponents. Uh, the Hudson County Democrats, that sort of machine, initially endorsed Steve Fulop. Then they switched to Gottheimer, I think, when their county chair got switched up. And now they basically abandoned Gottheimer for Cheryl over the last couple months. So yeah, she's running with the machine backing. All the resources of that political machine up there are pumping for her. So yeah, it looks like she's going to be the front runner.
Yeah. Do you want to quickly go
Yes.
through the last two irrelevant candidates?
Yeah, these two are a little less relevant. They're polling way less than the other one. Sean Spiller, former mayor of Montclair and current president of the New Jersey Education Association, so the big teachers union in New Jersey. He's basically running his entire campaign on the teachers union in New Jersey, like the union dues of their members. I think a PAC associated with the NJEA put in $40 million for his campaign. So his campaign is basically entirely being buoyed by that. So not the best look that you're using union dudes to run a campaign that's not really going much of anywhere. So yeah, but like he's also an African American, so that could potentially also like along with teachers that could also play into his base and there's those Montclair as like a suburb of sort of Newark there that also maybe those areas he could do better in, but it does not look like his campaign is going much of anywhere. And then last is Steve Sweeney, um, former Senate president of the New Jersey legislature, so government experience. He was in the state Senate before losing his campaign in 2021 to basically a no-name Republican. So not the best look for Steve Sweeney. He has the backing of the entire South Jersey Democratic machine, so they're pumping out votes for him and like using their resources for his campaign. He's really framed his campaign as a campaign for South Jersey. Like in his ads, at least as they're played in South Jersey, they're always ended with Steve Sweeney for South Jersey. And you don't like he doesn't do that for the North Jersey his North Jersey ads, but like you can tell he's running as the South Jersey candidate. And also he's in one of those he's running in a more moderate lane. That also like kind of differs him
Yeah.
from the other candidates. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. Not much more to add. Sue Sweeney, of course, that big South Jersey machine candidate, but honestly, I don't know if he can do anything. I mean, he is the only candidate for South Jersey, and everyone else is breaking up North Jersey, but it seems like everyone's swooping in and taking his votes too. Honestly, if he retained his seat in 2021, maybe he is a very strong candidate right now. But losing in 2021 to Ed Durr, who I think spent all his campaign money on a bit of Dunkin' Donuts or something,
Yeah.
after raising like $50, that was not great.
Not a good
And
look,
Sean
yes.
Spiller, I mean, honestly, if you're not a teacher or spouse of a teacher, why would you consider voting for this guy? That's all he has to offer. So, can't even qualify for a debate by raising 500
No, he
grand,
can't.
but he can raise 40 million from his PAC. So that looks really bad. Anyways, taking a look at the Democrat polling, we haven't gotten anything since our last video, which is really bad. Shame on these pollsters for pulling out. I think they're just too scared to pull this race right now, because they're likely to get it very wrong, and they're also receiving high numbers of undecideds, which don't look good. So I guess that makes sense of why they're not pulling, but still shame on them for giving us no more data. Regardless, Mikey Sherrill, like we've been saying, has been running well in the lead. She has about 24% in the average. In second and
Hmm.
third, we have Ross Braca as the Fulop, who are sort of sharing that second place at a high 13%. Josh Gottheimer is in fourth in the polling at 11%, but a lot of that is probably underestimating him considering how much he has been spending on ads post these
Yeah.
May polls. And Sean Spiller, Steve Sweeney, the two SS candidates, they're sort of down to the dumps. I don't know if they can do much here. And that's sort of where we're at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Like Mikey Sherrill's been ahead all along. It did look for like for a bit, maybe back a month or two ago, before Rosbraca got in that whole scuffle with the Trump administration that Fulop kind of had momentum against Sherrill. But I think after that, it kind of killed his momentum. Like because Baraka started to go up in the polls as he started appearing on like national headlines. So like now. The progressive candidates are kind of in this weird position where they're like in a fight for second, while Cheryl sits on top in the polling at first.
Exactly. Should we quickly move on to the Republicans now?
Yes.
So yeah, the Republican primary is a lot more straightforward than a six-way primary in the Democrats. You
I
really
think,
have, huh?
sorry, I think we just go over the main three Republicans here, by the
Yeah,
way. I don't
that's what
think we
that's what
touch
I was
on.
going to
Yeah,
talk
okay,
about.
good, good,
Yeah,
good.
I was going to say there's only three main Republicans here, and it's John Bramnick, Jack Chiarelli, and Bill Spadea. The other two don't really have any pull at all. In Justin Barbera and Mario Krajak.
Hmm.
Um, Taking a look at John Bramnick, who's the first on Wikipedia, he's the most moderate Republican. He could even be classified as a liberal Republican, honestly. He has leadership in the state legislature. And honestly, if you was the nominee, Democrats might be very fearful of this guy,
Oh
but
yeah,
it looks like he's going to be going nowhere here, being too liberal.
yeah,
And he is able to win Democrat districts, but I don't know. I think
yeah.
he's cooked, honestly.
His district's actually like Harris plus 12. So he does have the ability. Like, he's a state senator. He does have the ability to win those moderate, even like some Democratic voters, because you definitely have to win Dem voters to win a seat like that. So yeah, but it's just that like too moderate for Republican primary, almost certainly. Next, you have the main candidate who's the front runner right now, Jack Ciattarelli, who was the nominee back in 2021 and actually almost beat, he's a former state assemblyman, but he almost beat Phil Murphy, notably, in 21. He lost to Murphy by a hair. He lost to him by like three percentage points. This time around, he's the clear front runner. Obviously, he's all that name recognition. Republicans are kind of hyped about him because, he did so well in a blue state back in 2021, albeit in a reddish sort of year. Um, and also, of course, I have to mention that he has the Trump endorsement, so that basically near locks him in. Um, like he has endorsements from committees, from Republican committees all across the state of New Jersey, but the Trump endorsement like really just locks it in because like he's like more of a middle of the road sort of Republican, but this gets the MAGA voters for him, so I think he's basically locked down the primary.
Yeah, I agree. He's sort of the most generic Republican, just like Mikey Sherrill on the other side. It's going to be the establishment candidates likely versing each other in the general, being in the lead on their respective sides. Finally, wrapping up Bill Spadea here, who is, I thought he was angling himself as the most Trump-friendly Republican, the true conservative, however you want to put it, but honestly, he was never going to win the general election. I think Trump saw that. I think Trump also saw that Jack was leading in the polls and he wanted to pad his endorsement record. And honestly, maybe with the Trump endorsement early, Spadia could have pulled out a win out of nowhere. But in the end, we're going to see Jack Shirley win this primary almost certainly. Polling, has this not even close
Yeah.
here with Jack Shirley up in the 40s. So this really isn't close. Yeah, you can see he's also clearly leading in fundraising as well. So that's about it for the primary. I guess we can start to put in our predictions, which likely are
Yes.
going to be far off, honestly.
Yeah, just a small disclaimer here for our predictions there. Um, primaries are much more volatile than general elections. So, because you like it's definitely harder to predict primary voters. There's less turnout in these elections usually. So, don't be surprised if our predictions are quite bad for some of these candidates and end up being like 10 points or more off. But nonetheless, we will strive to give our bridging the gap predictions. Hopefully, our average kind of averages out to be something kind of good here. So, should we just like do in the order they're presented, like run like we each put in?
Or should we
Um,
go in reverse order from our worst to best?
actually, that's not a terrible idea.
All right.
Okay,
Why don't you start?
let's start with the Dems. Okay, so I have in last place actually Sean Spiller. I gave him 5% of the vote. Um, yeah.
Okay, I have him at 7%. Basically the same reasoning. I
Okay.
think he'll be, he'll get enough teachers on his side, I suppose. They are very powerful.
Yeah, but I just don't think, yeah, like his base ultimately isn't like good enough to get him anywhere close to like a
Okay.
victory. Yeah. Next I have Steve Sweeney at 10% of the vote. So a little higher than he's polling. I think South Jersey, like I think the South Jersey machine is going to get him enough to get him to 10%, not enough to win, but I think he'll win a lot of the counties down there by like a plurality votes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also had him at exactly 10%. I had pretty much the same reasoning as you. Looking at the polling, he is polling only around 6%, but I think ultimately a lot of South Jersey voters aren't being reached in these polls. So yeah, I guess maybe we should alternate. So I guess I'll go next.
Mhm.
In fourth, I don't think you're gonna have this guy in fourth. I have Ross Baraka in fourth. I have him at 15%. It's going to be a solid showing from him, but ultimately, I think his reach is very narrowed to sort of the Newark area, and yeah, I can't see him breaking out enough.
Actually, I actually have a third, fourth tie between Baraka and Gottheimer. I gave them
Okay,
both 14% of the vote. And you can let me
okay,
know. Like I think
yeah,
I actually think my reasoning here is that I think um the areas that Baraka is trying to appeal to, like voters of color in Essex County, Newark, I think those people don't really turn out in primaries as opposed to like white suburban voters in like Gottheimer's district. So I think even though Barack is polling better than Gottheimer, I think it'll end up being about the same by the general, for me at least.
okay, yeah, fair enough. Josh, I had him at 16% in third, so pretty much the same thing. We've been thinking along the same lines here. So,
Okay. The
should I go
next,
on or
oh
should you
yeah,
go? Do you want to?
you may go, you may go.
Okay, in second place, of course, Steve Fulop here. 18% for me, not too much better than third and fourth, honestly. I think he's going to come short of getting Mikey, honestly.
I gave Philip a little higher. I put him at 22% of the vote. I
Bold.
think, yeah, I think he'll be able to pull more. Like, I actually think his strategy, like the uniqueness of his strategy and like trying to make coalitions with candidates across the state, opposition candidates across the state, it's not really, I think it's going to end up being a pretty good strategy for him. Ultimately, not enough to win or get him really close to a victory, but enough to get him about a fifth of the state's vote, I think. And then finally, for Miss Mikey Sherrill winning the Democratic primary here, I put her at 35% of the vote.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I had her, 34%. I think she's going to outperform the polling by about 10% here, as most of the undecideds realize
Yep.
she's not only the front runner, but probably the best candidate in the general.
Yep. Uh, so I guess from there, we go to the Republican primary here. I mean, I guess we'll just start with our worst, like same thing, start with our worst. Like we have the two sort of like more relevant-ish candidates here. I put like I'll just run through them actually. These two more relevant ones.
Yeah.
Barbera I put at 2%, Kranjak I put at 3%. Don't think they're gonna get much of the vote at all. Um,
I'm going to go even lower here at 1 and 2%. Just doesn't seem relevant to me. I guess next I'll move to John Bramnick, the liberal Republican here. I think he's going to get around 11%. I think that's better than what he's polling at. I'm not sure,
yeah,
but
it is. It is.
um,
I generally agree. I put him at 10%. I think there is still a small lane of moderate Republicans in these northeastern states like New Jersey. So I think he will get he'll get at least double digits, I think.
yeah, I think
Um,
so. And a lot of them will move to Jack in the general.
and then next, of course, Bill Spadilla. I gave him 28% of the vote. I think
Wow.
yeah, I mean maybe that's a little high, but also my logic is that looking at back at the 2021 primary, even when Schiaparelli consolidated like the candidate we both presume is going to win, consolidated most of the vote. Like his primary showing wasn't like terribly great, and the more MAGA candidates did get a significant portion of the vote, despite him like leading, like being the front runner. So I think there's like Spadilla still has room to gain like a significant coalition of voters who see him as more MAGA, even though Trump gave the endorsement to Schiaparelli.
Yeah, honestly, I think we're thinking too similar here. I
Oh
swear I wrote down
wow.
27%. And yeah, looking at it, I mean, there's a lot of energy actually for Bill in Central and South Jersey here. So I do think he's going to outperform his polling. However, I think that Trump endorsement really, really hurt him. So he's going to be down at 27 for me. And I
Okay.
guess I'll just finish off at 58 for Jack Ciattarelli, who
And I have
is
57.
ultimately going to win. Yeah, very, very close. I mean, a lot of these are pretty much within a point of each other. Our only big difference is on Steve Phillip here.
Hmm.
I think you're overestimating him, but I guess we'll see on Tuesday. But regardless, very, very similar percentages across the board. I think
Yep.
everything's
So
within 1 to 2%, really.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we got, I guess, some great minds think alike, right? So Schiaparelli, we anticipate a 30, but we're predicting a 30-point victory in the primary, and for the Dems, I think that's a 14, 15-point victory for Miss Mikey Sherrill. Yeah, so those are our primary predictions. Shall we give some insight into how we think the general is going to turn out next?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
Okay, so my thinking, I think we both agree here, obviously, that Mikey Sherrill is going to proceed for the Democrats, and Jack Ciattarelli is going to proceed for the Republicans. So basically, these two super establishment candidates here, um, you have the Trump pick for the Republicans and the Dems. Mikey Sherrill is largely, in my mind at least, a continuation of like the status quo, like with Murphy, um, like that, like just kind of generic sort of Democrat. I actually think I'm struggling to place down, like I was kind of struggling to place down an exact margin of victory. I think I ultimately ended on it. Hmm. Okay, I guess I'll say safety in the fact that I think it'll be like an exactly around 10-point victory for Mikey Sherrill. Why do I say this? I think Sherrill has some swing in areas that Jack did really well in 2021. Jack notably like did really well in North Jersey suburbs and South Jersey suburbs. Mikey Sherrill is able to really do well among those swing voters, and her district covers a big sprawling mass of those North Jersey suburbs. So I think she'll be able to hold his margins down there, even with the state generally swinging right. And then on top of that, in like since we're in an off year, it tends to go against the incumbent. I think the backlash against Trump, especially like as we've been seeing in special elections, is going to arrive in New Jersey to some extent as well. And I just don't think Jack's going to end up doing as well as he did in 2021. Despite the
Wow.
macro trends of the state, I think it'll end up the state will end up swinging back left a little bit, 4 points, and we'll see a Cheryl victory. But that's what I have, and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that was not what I expected. I mean, honestly, I thought you were going to have it in likely Democrat. I actually had Mikey only winning by 2 to 3 points right now.
Mhm.
I think you're going to be surprised by the margin if you're expecting such a big win for her. I understand that Republicans have largely been winning over low propensity voters, and that's going to hurt them come 2025. But Republicans in New Jersey are slightly different than Republicans across the nation, like Appalachia and
That's
across the
true.
Great Plains, in which they're much more engaged, they're more educated, and a lot of those ancestral, like white suburban types, are still remaining as Republicans, regardless of how these demographics are moving across the country. Also, the shifts in sort of North Jersey here are massive. They were massive in 2024, and coming off a Biden plus 16 victory. Jack was able to get this within three, basically. That's 13 points to the right of the presidential election. I know you can't just translate it over like that to 2024. However, with such big shifts over in, Harris only winning the state by 6 points, I think this is going to be, Jack's going to do around as well as he did in 2021 and come within three again, I would say. I mean, I know the generic ballot's at around D plus 2.5 right now.
Hmm.
Let's say it moves to D plus three or D plus four even. And I'm sort of actually anticipating that. And even with that, I'm anticipating a Jack decent performance at Mikey plus 2 to 3 here.
Like I see
Yeah.
your train of logic. It's just that I think Cheryl counters that to a decent counters those suburban gains that you anticipate Jack will get to a large extent just because her district covers such a large mass of those voters he's going to be looking to flip. Like Morris County is like almost entirely within her district, and that's one of the counties he won in 2021. I think against Cheryl, I think he loses that county. And Cheryl like outran Harris, for example, by like 7, 8 points, I think. So I think she's definitely a strong candidate. I anticipate she wins, but I guess between the two of us, that would push the that would push it to a likely margin. I think that between us, it'll average out to be like a 6, 7 point victory to Cheryl for Cheryl. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, there's no polling out for this race in the general. So, we're just kind of going off the 2024 election, what we see in trends. There's no real independent polling data we can go off of. Obviously, the general election hasn't started, so we can't really go off how they're running their campaigns. Um, so, very early general
Yeah,
prediction, but
big
Cheryl
data
definitely,
coming
yeah.
though on
Yes.
Tuesday. Looking at how well Cheryl and Jack do in the primary is going to be big. I mean, if they sort of hit the targets we've set out for them here, that's sort of what our predictions based off of. But look, if Cheryl or Jack have a worse night than expected, especially if this progressive lane is picking up steam here, and then they lose in a nail biter, that could make people sort of get turned off by Cheryl. Or, if Bill Spadia does particularly well, people might see Jack as a fraud. Or even if John does particularly well, these voters might be moving to Cheryl in the general. So we don't know. That's going to be very interesting. Also, I don't know about the polling here. I think the polling is going to be very weak in New Jersey, in terms of how accurate it's going to be. I guess we'll see how accurate the polling is from the primary from someone like Emerson. But the problem for me is that people just haven't been pulling New Jersey because it is not a swing state traditionally, and now that it is one, I suppose we could say that, right? In 2024, now that it is one, I'm not sure if pollsters need like at least a presidential cycle or two where they're actually in here to where they could start being accurate. And like in 2024, there was like presidential polling in New Jersey that was way off everywhere.
Yep.
And so I'm not sure if they can actually anticipate what's going to happen, like
Yeah.
here. Because, I mean, we look at the general election polling back in 2021. I mean, it looks abysmal for Jack, and then he comes much closer. So, um, yeah, I mean, these all have like D+8 or D+9 or D+10, and then Jack comes within three. So I'm not sure if we can really rely on the polling, but regardless, it'll be good
I'll
to
see.
see.
Yep. But I think that concludes this video. And I mean, we're gonna find out soon, or some extra data soon on the primary in the next couple days. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe Mike, you won't even win, although that seems very unlikely. So, regardless, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll leave a like on this video down below if you enjoyed. Comment down below any future video suggestion ideas, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.